When I arrived in Zimbabwe for the second trip, Pastor Regis and I were already in discussions about creating a joint venture called Wells for Zimbabwe. With the high unemployment rate and lack of basic services, thousands there live in abject poverty. Many women walk 2 or more miles to fill a bucket with water from the nearest well. As a result, their daughters who help them never go to school or find their way out of this cycle of poverty. We created Wells for Zimbabwe to help dig drought-proof wells that can serve communities for decades and alleviate suffering. During this second trip, we traveled to Mupinga. There we viewed a well system that expanded our plans and our vision substantially. The well system was originally funded by a Norwegian NGO, which stands for Non-Government Organization. In Mupinga, they built a solar-powered system that permanently changed the plight of people in that community. The pump brings water to a holding tank above ground that automatically shuts off when filled. One line can be opened to provide a fresh supply of needed water to the community. Women come with water containers and take as much as they need, often using wheelbarrows to cart the water back to their nearby homes. This in itself is extraordinary. Another line feeds a nearby trough with water. This trough is used for a variety of things such as water for washing clothes, irrigation that I will mention in a moment, and even watering livestock, which can provide milk and additional food sources. Since the entire system is solar powered, ongoing maintenance is negligible. Water is available 24 hours each day for all members of the community, in this case approximately 600 people. As mentioned, some of the water is used to irrigate farmland adjacent to the well. Each family is given one row to manage, as members of the community. They then take responsibility to water and care for their own individual row and grow lettuce, kale, cabbage, onions, and many different vegetables. Especially in rural areas, Zimbabweans lack nutritious food, subsisting on a cornmeal paste known as sadza and goat meat or chicken when available. Access to vegetables changes their diets and dramatically improves their health. Due to the weather in Zimbabwe, each family can harvest their gardens 4 times each year. Excess food can be sold to bring in additional income or given away to others at their discretion. When the pastor and I saw this operation, we were incredibly impressed and decided then and there that this was the model we wanted to adopt. NGOs are arbitrary as to who, when, and how they finance each project. There exist many political and administrative problems with this arrangement for solving this dilemma. We immediately realized that if participating churches could donate land and develop these systems in each community, the benefit would be much more fruitful. The next day, we traveled over 200 miles over dirt roads to several different sites, all connected to New Life Church. The first we visited is called Zimbabwe. These women walk 3 miles round trip every day to collect water. Zimbabwe is a community of almost 600 people and the neediest of all the places we would visit. After consulting with the pastor and elders there, we selected a potentially open field, literally in the middle of nowhere, as the best site for a well and irrigation system. This would be where we would launch our first well. The pastor brought us together to pray over this site. Other sites we visited included Mesivamelma. As you can see, the church itself is very primitive, with a tarp for a roof and no furniture to sit on. It's a great contrast to America, where people often choose to attend a church based on the quality of the sound system or comfort of the chairs. The believers there are very poor. As I stood leaning against the sun-dried wall of brick, I realized that if I leaned too hard, the wall would fall inward. This is not a sturdy facility. After consulting with Regis, the pastor offered the land necessary to create enough farmland to feed the entire village of several hundred. This was most probably the site of the second well and irrigation system. We also visited Gongweni, Chibudviza, and Chingeli, where I ministered during the first trip. Each pastor willingly donated church property to create gardens that will feed their communities, some of which number as many as 1,000 people. After careful investigation, we learned that the price tag for an entire well system would range from $9,000 to $12,000 depending on how deep the borehole would need to be dug. We returned to Cheredzee and spoke with many others about how to bring this vision to fruition. The next night, the conference began. People came from each of the previously mentioned regions, some traveling many hours. They carried their food, and many slept on the church grounds under the stars with their little children. The 220 to 250 people were in a celebratory mood as the conference began. During the second day of the conference, dozens decided to get baptized in water. Yes, that water is genuinely green, and the once clear swimming pool contains several small fish. You had to honestly believe to be baptized that day. But many gladly followed Christ into these waters, many of them teens and young adults. The conference concluded Sunday night, with many rejoicing and several giving their lives to Christ. I was privileged to give away 20 New Testaments, printed in Shona, the native language of those in attendance. The next day I assumed would be a day of rest, but the pastor planned another activity. We traveled about an hour to a beautiful home in another region of Zimbabwe. There we were treated to many sights and then left for a safari. Unlike South Africa, safaris in Zimbabwe are not in enclosed vehicles. You sit or stand in the back of a large pickup truck accompanied by armed park rangers. We saw giraffes, zebra, elephant, but the best was yet to come. After the truck parked on a ridge, 2 of the rangers left the truck and walked down into a ravine. 15 minutes later, via walkie-talkie, I learned what they were doing. They found a pride of 12 lions resting nearby. 5 of us followed a ranger down the ravine through thick brush to emerge on the other side and come within 100 yards of the pride. When one of the lions stared back at us with its ears perched, the ranger informed us we could come no closer or the pride would attack. Very exciting. Standing next to an armed ranger caused me to feel very brave. The next day I left for home, which began at 4 a.m. I said my goodbyes to many and finally arrived home after 40 hours of travel. When I began to share the vision for Wells for Zimbabwe on my podcast, through GoFundMe, and in the local community, many gave from their hearts to start the first well system. A fellow pastor, Maynard Tyson from Waterbury Baptist Ministries, pledged their congregation would raise $3,000 to help. Months later, we were able to send the down payment to get the first well in the ground. Listen to Henry share his eyewitness account of the moment this occurred.
Hello everyone, my name is Henry Madakadze. I'm a volunteer with Wells for Zimbabwe. I just want to share with you a little bit of what happened when we went to drill a borehole in Zimbabwe. We started drilling around 5 p.m. It was almost getting dark, and everyone from all walks of life from that village had come to see this miracle that was happening, because they had never seen something like this before. What happened is they started drilling from 5 p.m. and when we hit about 40 meters, people were now being skeptical. Some went back home because they thought they were never going to find water. But when we hit 52 meters, wow, a miracle happened. Water just came gushing out, and there was ululating, people were whistling, people were jumping up and down, shaking hands, celebrating, because we had hit safe water for the community. I even had a chance to witness a certain woman crying. She had tears on her face because she was saying they were used to walking kilometers and kilometers to fresh water. Now they had fresh water right by their doorstep. You know, it is so fulfilling to see people happy, to see people have fresh water in their backside. This is something that is really big for the community, and we want to appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. This second video shared our progress in establishing the first well in a rural community in Zimbabwe. In the next video, I'll share my third trip with you and how an unexpected connection revolutionized this project. You won't want to miss it. I'll catch up with you on the next video.